Open the podcast bay door as hell.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 85 of Welcome to Geektown. I'm your host, Kurt Onstead. I've been a proud geek all my life, being into role-playing games, board games, sci-fi, fantasy, and especially superheroes and comics. And I want to help others join me in those pursuits, but I've found that sometimes people can get overwhelmed or feel left out because they don't already have what some consider the requisite knowledge to be considered a fan. And that's where Welcome to Geektown comes in. Here you can ask your questions without feeling like a gatekeeper is calling you out for not yet being fully versed in every aspect of your new interest. I need to start the show with a slight correction/addition. In the last episode, I said Helix's first appearance was in Spider-Man Maximum Clonage Alpha number 1. Yes, that's the full title. And so his creator credits have been listed as the writer-artist team of that book, which is Tom DeFalco, Todd DeZago, and Ron Lim. However, in episode 55 of Welcome to Geektown, Evan Skolnick seems to state that he and New Warriors penciler Patrick Zurcher came up with the idea and look originally. I've reached out to Evan for further elaboration on that, but as of this recording have not heard back. Since recording that, I've heard back from Evan, and he and Patrick did co-create Helix, but that credit was mistakenly left off the title page of the book, so it was assumed that the creative team of that one-shot are the ones that created the character. Thank you to Evan for getting back to me as quickly as he could. I gave very little notice due to catching this discrepancy late in the process. I added this note to the Welcome to Geektown website as soon as I received the info, but I know not all of my listeners also visit the site, so I wanted to make sure this creator credit was seen/heard by as many people as possible. I strive for accuracy in all of my shows, so if you hear any other errors, please let me know and I'll be happy to include those corrections down the line. We're back to answering listener questions. Remember, I'm always wanting to get new questions in, so please send those along to welcometogeektown, all spelled out, @gmail.com. This week's question comes from one of our younger listeners, who also happens to be the son of recent guest Joel L. Aiden recorded his question and sent it to me, so let's take a listen to find out what he wants to know.
Hey Geektown, I've been playing Marvel Villainous and playing other things that have Taskmaster, and I don't really know much about him. Can you have a episode or two on that?
Well, Aiden, you're going to get a big dose of Taskmaster in the upcoming Black Widow movie that is releasing in theaters and on Disney Plus, for an extra fee, in July. And since that movie was originally planned to release last May, it's understandable that some tie-in merchandise, like the Marvel Villainous game, has already been released. So, let's take a look at Taskmaster's comic book history and see what makes him tick, and possibly get a hint as to what his role will be in the upcoming film. Taskmaster was created by David Michelini and George Perez during their run on the Avengers in the early 80s, making a brief appearance in Avengers 195, with his full debut coming one issue later. Taskmaster's real name is Anthony Tony Masters, and from a very early age, he discovered that he had what are referred to as photographic reflexes. Similar to a photographic memory, where one remembers everything that they've seen, Tony is able to extend that to his body, and thus able to replicate any physical movement that he witnessed, without any practice or training necessary, as long as no actual powers are involved. For instance, he can mimic Spider-Man's fighting style, but he can't stick to walls just by watching Spidey do it. If a specific move requires super strength or agility, he may be able to do it once or twice in a fight, but that's something he saves for emergencies, as the strain of doing so wears him out really quickly. He immediately set out to using his powers of mimicry to gain fame and fortune, starting in high school when he became the star quarterback by watching one pro football game. Once he graduated from school, after a brief flirtation with becoming a crime fighter, he went the other way, deciding that professional criminal paid better. At first, he used his abilities to steal, but once he realized how dangerous a life of crime could be, he came across a better idea uniquely suited to his abilities, that of teacher. Instead of committing any crimes himself, Taskmaster used what remained of his loot to set up a series of academies where he secretly trained thugs and henchmen to be the best fighters they could be. This is what he was doing when the Avengers first were made aware of and confronted him in Avengers 196. He was able to hold his own against both Captain America and Iron Man through his careful study of the Avengers, able to anticipate and counter their moves from his past study. Because he specifically calls on Captain America's and Hawkeye's skills quite a bit, Taskmaster is usually armed with a shield, as well as a bow and arrow. He's also often seen with a sword, borrowing Swordmaster's abilities, among others. Unfortunately for him, in his first fight, he was not familiar with Jocasta, who had not really fought in a public arena yet, and so was easily bested by the female synthezoid. Throughout the 80s and 90s, this is mostly how Taskmaster has been portrayed, working for the highest bidder to train their henchmen so they can fight against the superpowered heroes they often face. Occasionally, he will also work directly in the field, often in an effort to frame and/or disgrace a hero by wearing their costume and mimicking them so perfectly as to make people believe they actually performed the crime that Taskmaster did. When he's been captured, he's leveraged his teaching skills to work off part of his sentence, most notably when he helped train John Walker to take over as the new Captain America after Steve Rogers quit. You can hear more about John in episode 7 of Welcome to Geektown, and currently see him on screen in the Falcon and Winter Soldier show. Other notable characters Taskmaster helped train include Agent X, Spider-Woman, and Crossbones. During the Civil War storyline of 2006/2007, Taskmaster was once again given amnesty in exchange for working with the government, helping take down the anti-registration heroes as the leader of the Thunderbolts. Not long thereafter, he was even awarded a full presidential pardon for testing the security of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s helicarrier in order to help them plug any holes. With his criminal history now behind him, Tony was hired as the new drill instructor at the training camp for the post-Civil War 50-state initiative, where younger registered superheroes were sent to get approved for crime fighting, and eventually assigned to a team in one of the 50 states. The story of those young heroes, as well as their instructors, was told in the pages of the new book titled Avengers: The Initiative. He continued to appear in Avengers: The Initiative, in the tie-in to Secret Invasion, and the follow-up to that known as Dark Reign, which didn't have a mini-series to tell one main story like Secret Invasion did, but was more of a theme tying in most of the Marvel books and how they were affected by the new status quo created by the climax of the Secret Invasion story. That status quo involved Spider-Man foe Norman Osborn, the original Green Goblin, being accepted as a hero and asked to take over many of the government's superhero agencies in an umbrella organization known as Hammer, which, despite being written with periods between each letter, wasn't actually an acronym for anything that we were ever told. While publicly appearing as a responsible leader of a new Avengers team, Norman was actually adding supervillains into the organization where he could, which included appointing Taskmaster to secretly train known supervillains to act like superheroes that had similar powers to them. Not liking being under Norman's thumb, Tony is able to escape shortly after the failed siege of Asgard led by Osborn, and returns to mercenary work at that point. In 2010, Taskmaster got his own limited series, in which we learn a new wrinkle regarding his powers. As Tony learns more and more implicit skills with his photographic reflexes, he loses more and more of his memories of his own personal life. In this miniseries, we find out that the mercenary was not only a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent at some point in the past, but was married as well, and that he had forgotten both of these things. His wife, Mercedes, still working for S.H.I.E.L.D., secretly acts as his handler, known only as Org. The pair go on a mission together to rediscover his origins, and Tony starts to regain some of his memories and feelings. However, in the final battle, Tony takes on his opponent's fighting style, causing him to lose his memory once more and leaves Mercedes on her own again. In addition to having a wife, soon thereafter we find out Tony may also have a daughter. In Avengers Academy, a young woman named Finesse has very similar abilities to Taskmaster and seeks him out to confront the mercenary and find out if he is her long-lost father. After fighting each other for some time, Tony says that it's a definite possibility, but since his powers cause him to lose his memories, the only way he will be able to remember her is through this fight and mimicking her fighting style, which was the only reason he fought her in the first place. While her lineage was never definitively established, Finesse sees Taskmaster as a potential warning sign of what could happen if she takes her powers too far. Most recently, Taskmaster has once again been forced to fight on the side of the Angels, after he was framed for the murder of the former head of S.H.I.E.L.D., Maria Hill. In order to clear his name, he's taken in by Nick Fury, who agrees to keep him safe from Black Widow, who's hunting him down for revenge, in exchange for helping him unlock access to a secret weapon known as the Rubicon Trigger. The key requires 3 people's kinesic signature, basically their body language, input within 30 seconds of each other, and only Taskmaster has the ability to replicate that. I won't spoil the ending, as the final issue of this miniseries was just released 2 weeks ago, but after a lot of fights and a lot of fun, Tony's able to do what needs to be done, clearing his name, while still being true to himself. And who is himself? What makes Taskmaster an enduring villain? Well, I think one thing that makes him unique is that he, more than almost any other superpowered character, treats this as a job. You almost never get him out for revenge or trying to deal with his arch nemesis. In fact, while he's probably most known for fighting the Avengers, as those were his earliest appearances, he doesn't really have a nemesis. He doesn't take any of this stuff personally enough for him to make that sort of connection. He's all about the paycheck, and will take whatever job is offered to him, no matter whether that puts him on the side of the Angels or the Devils, as long as it pays well. He's also very cautious, trying to keep himself out of direct confrontation as much as possible, coming up with schemes like his henchman training classes, and always knowing that discretion is the better part of valor, taking any opportunity to leave a fight that he sees as not going his way. As I mentioned earlier, Black Widow was after Taskmaster in his most recent series, and even with all of his skills, Tony knew that any fight between the two of them was likely to end in his death, as she is considered to be one of the deadliest fighters in the world, if not the deadliest. So it'll be interesting to see if that attitude towards Natasha carries into his appearance in the upcoming Black Widow movie. Judging from the trailers, he seems to be working for the Red Room, which trained Natasha and other super spies in Russia. I'll be curious to see if this is just another job to him, or if they've changed his story significantly, and if the MCU version of Taskmaster is specifically tied in to Black Widow's backstory. Tony is very much American in the comics, so if he's Russian in the movie, that will be a significant change. Well, Aiden, I hope this gives you some idea of who Taskmaster is, and I hope you enjoy playing as him in the villainous game. And to Aiden and everyone else listening, if Taskmaster's history inspired any new questions you'd like answered in a future episode, I'd be glad to hear them. Or if you'd like to leave a note on the show in general, I'd love to receive those as well. You can send all questions and comments to me via email at welcometogeektown, all spelled out, @gmail.com. Or you can go to the website, welcome to, the number 2 in this case, geektown.com, and click the Submit a Question link if you'd prefer to remain anonymous. Other contact options include facebook.com/welcome to Geektown or Twitter @GeektownPodcast. Also, if you'd like to support the show directly, come join the Patreon at patreon.com/welcome to Geektown for just $1 per month to get access to full scripts of the shows, audio outtakes, and a monthly shoutout. You can also help the show grow by subscribing and giving a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts to join the Geektown City Council, which helps other people find the show, so we can all tell them, welcome to Geektown, population, us. Welcome to Geektown is written, narrated, edited, and produced by me, Kurt Onstead. Theme music is by Aaron Levitz, logo art by Archie Santana. All other sound clips are the copyrighted material of their respective owners, and no infringement is intended, falling under fair use.